I'm a senior sales consultant with Mutuitech, principally focusing on our GRC product set and platforms. I'm here today to talk about Mutuitech's TAP platform and how it can help deliver process automation, which will in turn help deliver enterprise transformation through those processes. Before we get into the product discussion in detail, I just wanted to give a bit of background about Mutuitech as an organization. So Mutuitech has been around for over 30 years now, delivering a number of solutions across a number of different verticals. We have solutions in the enterprise legal management space. We have solutions in the governance, risk and compliance space, the HR space, and principally what we're going to be talking about today, the workflow automation space as well. We've got a lot of high value customers that you can see on screen at the moment that use a number of our platforms. And we've got a total, I think it's actually a little bit higher than this, of 1,200 global clients currently. We have offices in the US, the UK, India, and Australia, giving us around the world coverage. And we have users spread across 160 countries around the globe, including 40% of the Fortune 500. In terms of the elements we're going to be talking about today, particularly around workflow automation, there are a number of key elements that are driving everyone's move to look at workflow automation, particularly in the COVID environment we find ourselves at the moment, but also in business in general that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years. Just to talk a little bit about those elements, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but there are a few key elements that are common to a lot of them. Manual processes have grown up over time, particularly in large enterprises where there's always been an inherent manual process as things flow through. And there's always a need to try and improve the flow of that business, improve the speed of response, and improve the ability to manage what's going on through those processes. Personally, I've seen in the last 12 months my email inbox explode with the number of requests and emails that are now coming into me on a daily basis. And I think that's common for everybody that we've been speaking to, clients and my personal friends, in terms of what they're dealing with day to day. So anything that's basically replacing a manual process with an email or trying to generate and manage processes through an email chain is inherently risky and also prone to failure points. You miss an email because you've received 500 today. How are you going to make sure that you've covered off all of those particular elements? But it also goes beyond just being able to track what you're doing in a better way, because it's about actually managing and understanding where particular processes are through their life cycle. If you've got elements that are coming in, how do you manage a follow-up or a chase-up around something that hasn't moved forward? How do you even know where that is? We've seen clients that are managing processes using spreadsheets. Somebody has to go into a spreadsheet every day and update where particular items are through their process. And what we're talking about with the solution we're discussing today is very much around how you can move away from that difficult to manage, difficult to understand, and difficult to maintain process structure, using a platform that can help you deliver a set of solutions across an enterprise, ranging from simple processes through to large complex processes that require a huge amount of integration with other systems. But key to all of it is also providing the necessary audit trails and checkpoints and reporting and BI around all of those elements as well. So how do you move from a manual process to an automated process? Well, every workflow solution works in the same way. But what we're going to discuss today is particularly how that is done inside the TAP platform and how that can basically be used to give you a really fast and effective response as particular business needs change. We've seen over the last 12 months financial requirements changing, specific regulations coming in, or processes having to alter as new requirements come in while we're trying to deal with the COVID pandemic. And how do you quickly get those processes in place, delivered both internally and potentially externally as well? And the idea with the TAP platform is to be able to take it from a very basic structure of getting a form put together, which can be used to capture information, to drive that information through a process, to actually designing a workflow, be it a simple workflow with a few steps or a large complex workflow with a large number of steps and integration points, but also delivering that to the people that are going to be using and managing that process, and being able to deliver a consistent look and feel through a process that something's going on, but also enabling those levels of communication and audit in the background that are sometimes much harder to manage through those manual processes. So enough of me talking about slides and elements that are going on here. Let me bring up the TAP solution and we can talk about things in a little bit more detail from there. So as I mentioned, TAP is a platform that enables you to develop a huge number of solutions as required. We'll talk about that a little bit more after we've had a look at how the structure comes together. But the whole principle is being able to take whatever process you need to implement, building it in a simple and effective way that's going to drive it through a process of development all the way through to delivery as quickly and easily as possible with minimal overheads. So the idea is that we don't have to have a serious development team building an application for us. We don't have to use any code to generate a form or build structure, because we've got a simple interface that allows somebody that understands the business process requirements and the information that needs to be gathered, and be able to use the form to be able to capture that necessary information. So in this case, we're looking at a flow of an exception against a particular policy, but the process we're looking at isn't important. The key element is the fact that we have a fairly simple form structure. I use drag and drop to define what's actually going on here. So if I need to include a drop down in this process to enable me to make a decision point or to drive something further forward, I can just drag and drop a a selection box onto the form. And I can go in and quickly decide what those options need to be. So if there is a yes, no, maybe requirement to be able to be captured as part of this process, I can quickly add that to the form in a manner that means that I can get quickly to that information and make sure that that's being pulled through. Once I've added that to the form, that can then be used when we design the process to actually make some decision points about where we go. But we can also go further than that. So maybe I need to make sure that we have files captured or documents captured as part of the process. It's very easy for me to go and just drag and drop a mechanism for uploading files onto a form. And then when this process is run, the user just clicks on a button and that will enable them to upload documents into the process. There's no coding or complex structures that need to be built to allow us to do that. The other elements that come out here are around the ability to put validation in there. Are we getting the right information in place? So for example, if we want to make sure that an email is coming into the system and it's an email format, I can say this needs to be an email and validate it as such. And I add that validation to the process. And now TAP will make sure that the information that's entered by the user is a valid email and in the correct format for that being able to work. We've also got the ability to do integrations to other systems straight from the form, to be able to pull information in and gather it. As an example of this, I've actually got here a list of policies that are attributed to particular areas of my organization that I'm building. Let's actually go and have a look at what that looks like in the form itself. So the form structure can be tailored and branded and structured as you need it to. It can gather information automatically with some simple configuration in terms of identifying who I am, who my manager is. But things like decision points don't just have to be pre-built lists in the form. They can actually be looking up against external data sources. And the decisions that are made on selecting which particular policy, in this case, I'm interested in, can then show me more information and determine who this then needs to be routed to. So as a different type of process here, this might be actually something that's going to determine the risk rating associated to a client or a particular vendor. And maybe that means that I need to go through different decision points and different steps and gather different information in the form. And the form can be dynamic to be able to capture all of that and feed it back to me as appropriate. So we've talked a little bit about form structure there, and the idea is that it doesn't need a huge amount of expertise to be able to build. It's something that can be put together by a business analyst, and the same is true of the workflow design. So again, the content here isn't critically important, but it's using standard structures, standard notification structures and standard mechanisms to build out a process. And again, it's all based on drag and drop functionality. So maybe if there's additional risk reviews that need to be handled for a high risk situation that needs to be managed, I can put in a high risk review here. Oops. And I can then decide what is going to be communicating with that section. I can add a transition just by dragging and dropping on here and build out a process from something that may start as a very simple process and evolve over time, and keep adding those extra levels of functionality and capability to my processes where it's needed to help me transition, not in a giant step that's going to take me 6 months to develop, but allow me to roll something out very quickly that will cover basic requirements. And then beyond that, go to the next level and say, well, actually, this is going to turn into something much more complex. So potentially here, I could start talking about integrations to other systems. I could start pulling information in from external sources. I could even do communication with outside sources. We've got the ability to have anonymous logins. So if I wanted to pull information in from a vendor around an NDA negotiation or something like that, I could actually have red lines passing backward and forward with an external party. But the process can start small and grow big, or alternatively, you might actually break something as complex as this down into simple workflows that can communicate between themselves. But that would enable business owners and business analysts to be able to build simple processes and again, roll them out quickly as the need is required throughout the process. What's going on around the outside of this is obviously all of that data is then being collected and pulled together. So I'm able to take all of the feeds of information from a process. In this case, I'm looking at around a process of legal requests. And here what I can do is I can filter it down based on the region that the particular requests have come from, based on information from inside the process in terms of whether or not this is using a pre-approved template, and pulling in information around how long it takes to complete a process. So I can start to manage this in a much more organized and structured way. So I've gone there through a few areas of the solution that give us a number of capabilities in terms of how that platform can deliver a solution for you quickly. What I wanted to do to just finish off this discussion point is talk a little bit about what one of our clients has done in terms of their particular implementation of the TAP platform. And what this is this is our client NetApp. They have started off 5 years ago, more than that now, in terms of identifying that there was a particular set of legal workflows that they needed to automate. But they then identified that not only are there legal processes that needed to be automated, there are processes across the entire enterprise that need to be automated and need to be managed and controlled in a more effective and structured way. So over the next few years, more and more departments inside the enterprise started to adopt TAP, develop their own processes, develop their own workflows and manage them to enable them to automate more and more over time. So this wasn't a one hit and we've implemented 72 workflows. It's something that evolved over time as more and more areas of the enterprise adopted TAP as their solution and were able to drive it further through, getting wider and wider as time has gone by. This particular slide is just a snapshot in time. They currently have over almost 100 workflows now. Actually, it's slightly under 100 workflows that have already been implemented across the enterprise. Just to give you an idea about what some of those are, I'm not going to read through all of these on the slide. You can take a look at these as we go through, but there are elements here that are fairly simple processes that have been put in place to automate fairly simple tasks, but also solutions that are actually much more complex and require much more integration with other solutions, and also pull information in from other sources. So there's lots and lots of elements that can start small and grow bigger and bigger over time as more and more processes throughout the enterprise get implemented. In this case, there are even more than this being used now. This is, again, a short while ago in terms of where they were with workflows. The main driver behind this, of course, is to make sure that we've actually got a reason for doing this. And the reason for doing this is, of course, to get some business value back from any investment that you're making, be it financial or time-based and capability-based. So the ROI of their particular workflows has actually returned almost $7 million over those 72 workflows across 8 business units. And with over 55,000 transactions being pushed through the TAP solution, and being able to manage all of those in a much more effective way, that's going to give them a lot of control over how that's structured, how they can report against it, how they can understand where those processes are in flow, and be able to manage those elements in a much more structured way than they would have been able to with manual processes. With that, Richard, are there any questions that have come in? I haven't seen any come.